Between 1957 and 1964, a world-renowned psychiatrist at McGill University in Montreal drugged his patients without their knowledge, kept them asleep for weeks, gave them electroshocks 10 times the medical standards, and erased their personality to rewrite it. His name was Donald Ewen Cameron. He was secretly funded by the CIA. And his patients thought they were getting depression treatment. Donald Ewen Cameron was one of the most respected psychiatrists of his time. Born in Scotland in 1901, he had chaired both the World Psychiatric Association and the American Psychiatric Association. He ran the Allen Memorial Institute at McGill University in Montreal, a 1943 founded institution in a Victorian villa on the slopes of Mount Royal. His research focused on what he called depatternization, the idea that one could erase pathological mental patterns from a patient to replace them with new, healthier behaviors. In theory. In practice, his methods involved massive doses of barbiturates to keep patients in artificial comas for weeks, hours-long loops of audio psychosurgery, and electroshocks at intensities judged excessive by his own colleagues. What Cameron didn't tell his patients, and no one else, is that part of his research was funded by the CIA's Multra/68 subproject, through the Society for the Investigation of Human Ecology, a front foundation created specifically to hide the source of funds. The official version has long been simple: Cameron was a visionary researcher working within the psychiatric knowledge of his time. His methods were controversial but weren't illegal at the time. McGill University claimed it knew nothing of CIA funding. The Canadian government, which also funded part of the research via the National Health Research Council of Canada, maintained its agencies weren't involved in the problematic aspects of the experiments. When MKUltra documents began to emerge in the late 1970s, after CIA Director Richard Helms had most of the archives destroyed in 1973, Cameron's name appeared in what remained of the 20,000 saved documents. The CIA admitted funding it. McGill University admitted receiving funds from the Front Foundation. The Canadian government maintained it hadn't known. The problem with this official version is what the archives reveal about the patients themselves. Men and women who consulted Cameron for relatively minor issues, anxiety, mild depression, marital problems, found themselves subjected to experimental protocols without informed consent. Some patients spent up to 86 days in chemically induced sleep. Audio recordings played the same message thousands of times while they slept, a technique Cameron called psychic driving. Several patients lost entire years of memories. Functional adults before their hospitalization came out unable to remember their name, recognize loved ones, perform basic tasks. One victim, admitted at age 26 for mild anxiety, never regained her pre-treatment memory. What the official version doesn't say, the Canadian federal government knew. Declassified documents show officials from the Defense Research Board attended meetings where Cameron's methods were discussed and continued to fund him. The evidence is in several layers of archives. The CIA declassified MKUltra documents in 1977, under Senate pressure, mentioned Subproject 68, Cameron's codename for his research. Contracts between the CIA Foundation and the Allen Memorial Institute are in the archives. Correspondences between Cameron and his Washington contacts are partially available via FOIA requests. In 1988, 9 former Canadian patients settled a lawsuit with the U.S. government for $750,000, without CIA admission of responsibility. In 1992, the Canadian government paid $100,000 Canadian dollars to 77 additional victims, an amount victims and lawyers called insulting. A request for independent commission of inquiry was denied. Robert Logie, one of the victims' lawyers, said documents he obtained showed the Canadian government was actively involved in the funding program and could not claim it didn't know. What Cameron's archives reveal is institutional collaboration between the university, the Canadian federal government, and the CIA for conducting mind control experiments on non-consenting civilian patients on Canadian soil, in a university hospital, by a respected doctor, over nearly a decade. This isn't a secret operation carried out in an isolated military base. It's a Victorian villa on Mount Royal in Montreal. It's McGill University. It's the Canadian healthcare system. And the victims weren't prisoners of war or criminals, they were ordinary citizens who trusted their doctor. MKUltra wasn't just an American program that accidentally happened in Canada. It was actively welcomed, partially funded, and deliberately ignored by Canadian institutions that should have protected these patients. Donald Ewen Cameron died in 1967 before his methods were publicly exposed. No criminal charges were ever filed. In 2017, McGill University expressed regrets 50 years after the fact while refusing to qualify as a complicit institution. In 2017, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made official apologies on behalf of the Canadian government to surviving victims. The apologies acknowledged the government had funded research that caused grave harm. They didn't mention CIA involvement. They didn't mention deliberate consent deficit. They weren't accompanied by additional compensation. The Allen Memorial Institute still exists. It's still affiliated with McGill University. It's still a recognized psychiatric center. The Victorian Villa on Mount Royal still treats patients. Between 1957 and 1964, in a Montreal University hospital, dozens of ordinary Canadians were deliberately psychologically destroyed without their consent, with CIA funding, and with Canadian government complicity. These facts aren't allegations, they're in the archives. They've been partly acknowledged by two governments. And no one has ever been prosecuted. Next time you walk past McGill University, remember that some of its oldest buildings hide a story the institution would prefer you not know. Subscribe to not miss the next episode.